Okay, so I want to tell a little story about this guy I used to know named Yuri. Uh, I knew Yuri when I lived in a lot in Israel, living in worker housing, which they provide for hotel workers in a lot. They don't have this in other Israeli cities if you work in a hotel, but if you work in a lot hotel, they give you a room for a really cheap price, between $100 and $200 a month. They take it right out of your paycheck, so you don't have to worry about paying it every month. And you could save a lot of money if you're willing to put up with the downside, which is having a roommate. And I lived with roommates in Israel for over 2 years. Hated it most of the time. It sucks. Being a grown man, having to share a room with another man is just humiliating. I hated it almost every day. But for a while, I had roommates and I dealt with them, for better or for worse. And if you heard my story about Oleg, the crazy Russian psycho, Yuri was the roommate that followed Oleg. He was my next one. And they moved me into this guy's room. And, he was a nice guy. I mean, to a fault. He was a total pussy. I don't think this guy had ever been in a fight in his life. To the point where he would try to get other people to fight you for him. Yeah. Total bitch. And unfortunately, he had this really, really bad odor problem. I don't know what it is with like Russian, Ukrainian people in BO, but I'd seen this on several other occasions, this horrible stench like emanating off of somebody's body, where even if they take a shower, it doesn't matter what they do, they still stink. You could still smell it like 10 feet away. And yeah, he had the same problem. I mean, the second he would come in a room and start undressing, the smell would like fill the room. It would make me want to puke. And for a couple of days, I tried to ignore it. Because, like, you're raised to be nice and not be rude to people. You don't want to tell somebody you got to live with every day, bro, you fucking stink, you disgust me. But finally, after a few days, I had to say something. Yuri was from Ukraine, by the way. Fellow immigrant to Israel. And I'm like, dude, I don't mean to be an asshole, but you smell really, really bad. Like, I don't know where it's coming from, why you smell like this, but it's horrible. I can't stand it. It's basically, I told him it's like torture, which it was. And of course, he was really, really embarrassed about it and immediately starts going into denial, telling me, oh, it's not me, it is my boots. Like, it's your boots? What the fuck? And he tells me, oh, I'll put my boots outside. I've never smelled shoes or boots that smell like that. And I've smelled some stinky ones. This is a different kind of smell. It is not a shoe smell. But he puts them outside. The smell persists. And I'm like, dude, it's not your fucking boots. Yes, it is my boots. I work in my boots all day. And like, seriously, it's not. It's you. It's coming off of your body. You got to do something about this. If you have to go to a doctor or what. And apparently this pissed him off enough that, like I said, he tries to get people to like fight me and kick my ass because he couldn't fight for shit. I would have beat that bitch's ass. And I'm sitting in my room, and all of a sudden, I find myself surrounded by like 7 or 8 big-ass Russian guys, right? Like around my bed in a circle. So I couldn't even run, right? If I wanted to run. I was like trapped. Like, what are you doing to Yuri, huh? Why you bother him? You mess with his computer? I'm like, his computer? I never touched his shit. What is he talking about? Not only is he trying to get people to fight me, but he's like just making up lies. I would never touch my roommate's shit. And even the worst roommate I had never did that to me. Even Oleg, David Sneer, if you've heard that one, he never stole or damaged my property. But He's accusing me of this. And I'm like, no. What? And I'm like, look, the whole problem is because he smells like really, really bad, right? Lucky that a couple of these guys spoke enough English that we could talk it out. And we'll get my ass stomped. So, yeah. And then finally, one of the Russian guys goes, you know what? He does smell. That's true. Oh, we're sorry. You're right. They're basically like, okay, he basically paid us off, like I said. We don't really want to beat you up. Yeah, they apologized to me. We shook hands. And then, much to Yuri's chagrin, not only did we all make up and become like friends, me and all these Russian guys, but we go out in the fucking parking lot in front of the building and start drinking beers, and Yuri's out there too. And he's sitting like off to the side all by himself, just stewing, like he looked humiliated. Talk about backfiring. And then like a week or so later, he tries it again. Now, this second guy was a complete asshole. That guy did not end up being friends with. Some Russian-American guy walks into my room, starts threatening me at about 2:30 or 3 in the morning, saying like if I fuck with Yuri anymore, he's going to beat my ass. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're trying this again? Why don't you just fight me yourself? Even if you lose, at least get some self-respect. You stood up for yourself, but no. He just kept trying to do this. I managed to talk my way out of that one too. That kid left. I never saw him again. I think he moved out of the building shortly after. And yeah, it's just, I don't know what his fucking problem was. But finally after that, he chills the fuck out. And he got rid of the smell. I don't know if he went to the doctor or he started showering differently or what. But I didn't smell it anymore. And then we basically became like friends. We didn't have any other issues. Except the fucking bikini briefs that this guy would wear. There's something about me, when a guy wears briefs, especially tighty whities, it just skeeves me the fuck out. And some people might be like, oh, you have some weird Freudian thing with dicks. You're like afraid of looking at some guy's dick. No, not at all. If the guy was completely naked, it wouldn't offend me. It's the briefs themselves. I just don't like the... Ugh. Because my dad used to wear tighty whities and wear them around the house like nothing else. I hated it when I was a kid. I still hate it. And, yeah. Bikini briefs. Ugh. Ew. And, but other than that, we got along. And, he would call me, because I called myself Mr. Sergey, right? That was my Russian name I made up for myself. Like, if you no have money, you get a visit from Mr. Sergey. And he no be happy you no have money. So he would walk in the room, I'd be like, Mr. Yuri. And he'd be like, Mr. Sergey. And this guy was like a fucking savant when it came to anything relating to weapons, any kind of arms. This guy knew literally everything about guns, tanks, any kind of weapon or weapon system. Like, you could ask him any question relating to anything like this, and he would have the answer. This guy knew like every part, every rate of fire, like every weapon ever made. Like, holy shit, you should get a job with a U.S. contractor. Get a U.S. work visa. You'll make like $200,000 a year. Some military contractor. Like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, whatever. I don't know if he ever ended up doing that, but I told him he should. The guy's a fucking genius in that regard. Told me he was an officer in the Ukrainian army. I can't picture that at all. Because unlike in the U.S. military, where lower ranks are forced to respect their superiors, if you're a private, even if an NCO is a total piece of shit, you have to listen to him or you'll get in trouble, especially officers. You talk back to an officer, as I found out once, you're going to get fucked up. Yeah, but in a country like Ukraine, you have to earn people's respect, right? A new officer, if he's a piece of shit, like no one's gonna listen to him, not even privates. He might even get beat up or fragged. Like they'll run him out of the unit. And that's probably what happened to Yuri, because this is not the type of guy anybody would listen to. No, no. And I find out from some guy that knew him, that like worked with him in the kitchen because he was a cook. The guy's like, "What are you talking about? He was never in the Ukrainian army." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He told me he got drafted, that it's conscription like Israel. And the guy's like, no, it's not. It's voluntary, and he was never in the military. I'm like, how does he know so much about weapons? The guy goes, I have no idea, dude. He's weird. He's a fucking weirdo. I'm like, okay then. But I guess in the end, maybe he was still bitter about me telling him he stunk or whatever. But when I finally moved out and got my own apartment that September in 2016, have not had a roommate since, thank fucking God. He was hopefully the last one I'll ever have in my life. When I was leaving the building for the final time, he was right there. In fact, I think he even helped me carry some of my shit out. Or he walked out with me. And he didn't even say goodbye to me. He just kind of walked away without saying anything. What the fuck? We've been cool for like the last 3 or 4 months. What's your problem now? But, yeah. Guess he didn't like me too much in the end, after all. But, yeah, that was my little story about my old roommate in a lot, Yuri, that for some reason smelled like shit, and I had to tell him. Tried to get people to kick my ass over it, didn't work. But in the end, at least we ended up being pretty much friends. What a guy. What a fucking guy.